Hey guys, we're staying on aircraft this week, and we're going to be looking at another one of Revell's airliner kits, but this time specifically of the Airbus A300 Beluga. Let's open her on up and take a look. Now this is one of these side open boxes, so it is a bit of a pill to get parts out without a lot of hustle. So, starting off with the fuselage halves, in hand for scale. This is by far not a little plane by any measure. It's quite large, so Bell's done a decent job of reflecting this. I would say some of the panel line could be a tad smaller, but not enough to really complain about. Thankfully, we don't have any noticeable ejector pin marks on the surface here. All good there. Much the same on this other half. Moving on to next sprue, we've got the lower wing halves, which again you can make out all the little surface details, as well as the additional rudders that this particular aircraft has. Next, we got our upper wings and the extensions to the horizontal stabilators. They chose to go with a two-half solution for this. Debatable whether it's good or bad or in between. Now, next up is where the bulk of the kit is, with this single large sprue, which contains our engines, landing gear, and all the little actuators and detail parts. The engines are acceptable. They could be a hair bit more detailed, but again, for this scale, you're not going to see too much anyway, so it's debatable if it'd be worth it. Overall, I'm happy. Shouldn't be too much difficulty to assemble them either. I do like that they did leave this open so that you can see back into the ass section of the bypass area. So that is a smart decision there. Moving on the wheels, they're basic wheels, same with the landing gear. For the scale, detail is acceptable. You do get some additional details for some of these other odds and end parts, but everything thankfully is straightforward and no real issues. Moving on to our one sprue of clear parts for our windscreens. They were smart on this as they have these slightly raised so they will slide into the framing. Oh, you should, in theory, get a nice and good solid fit. Beyond that, good thickness, no real complaints there. Same with the rest of these light parts. Did find a little bit of flashing, but it's fairly minor, so I'll chalk it up to just, where this kit was on the production line. So, give me a second to get the parts back in, and we'll take a look at the decals. Alright, for the decals, we're given this fairly decent sized sheet. Include all the tail markings and the numbering for whether you're building 1, 2, or 3. And some very nice lettering. All the colors are in good register, very sharp, crisp, no issues. You might run into a little trouble with these decals that go over where the horizontal staplers connect in. You probably want to make sure you're clearing enough space to make sure you don't have any issues there. Beyond that, decals are very nicely rendered. No complaints. Obviously, given the sizes of these, you'll want to be very careful with them. Now, moving on to the instructions. Now, this is one area where Revell's newer style of instruction sheet does do you a lot of good, in that it does give you a much better idea of how to build this thing up. Assembly begins, again, in most cases, with the front office. This time building up the nose gear and building up into the cockpit. Now, an interesting thing to note on this kit, it does give you provisions if you do want to open the cargo section up. They don't really give you parts for that, but I do like the fact that they did think to give you the option. Beyond this, we then move into assembling the fuselage. They do recommend a decent amount of weight to add. I would say you might want to add a little extra, just because this will probably be a tail sitter otherwise. From there, we do the stabs, though I would say you'd probably better off leaving them off till the final assembly, simply because getting that decal on, and then doing the wings and their sub-assemblies, before moving on finally to the engines. Again, this is another area I would say leave these off until final assembly. And then we're on to the main gear. Very straightforward. And then doing those final little odds and end detailing parts. Now for this intersection, as I said, they don't really give you much in the way of being able to detail it. In fact, the only thing they really give you is this little cutout to go inside. So that's one area I would say they could have done better, but again, how many of us are actually going to pose it in the open configuration? But then we move on to our decals, and they thankfully provide you the tail numbers for each of the different three. And that's going to basically close out the build on this guy. So overall, what do I think? Well, I do think it's an unusual aircraft. That, the fact that we got a kit of it at all is surprising. In this day and age where we really don't get much in the way of airliner kits, to get one of these more oddball ones is a nice surprise. Now, I do think the kit is far from being absolutely perfect, as I noted the fact that they didn't include any sort of internal detail for the cargo area, but give you the provisions to display it, is one area they could have done better. Engines could have been just that tiny bit better, but are still good. Overall, it's a solid kit. And end of the day, I do think solid kit is what we should be aiming for. It doesn't have to be the absolute positively best, so long as the fundamentals are solid. And I would say that's what this is, a solid kit. So that was a look at Revell's 1/144 scale Airbus A300 Beluga. Solid kit, one that I would say worth it to pick up just because it is a bit of an oddball subject. So, until next time.